Oh, what a nice bounce back win for the Brewers into an off day, a 5-1 road trip. And they are 5 games over the 500 mark. We'll get to all that coming up next on this edition of Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Milwaukee Brewers do surprise me because I've always come to expect the unexpected with the Milwaukee Brewers. And quite honestly, most of the time I'm disappointed. I'm just being a Brewer fan the entire point of my life. And I know stay positive. It's hard to stay positive sometimes when your team has been to one World Series in 55 years and no championships. Good to have you along. Good note to start on. Chuck Freimund here, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Brewers just finished up a series with the Reds. I'm going to get into some things with this series. And then Jeff Carr from Locked On Reds, we're going to do a little crossover, he and I, and talk a little bit about both teams in the Central Division, trying to stay relevant here in the division. Both were supposed to contend this year. Not that it can't be possible yet, but it's an uphill climb facing the trying to catch Chicago Cubs, who did lose on Wednesday. But Jeff Carr will join me from Locked On Reds coming up here in a little bit. But I have to admit, when I saw the lineup card on Wednesday morning, I was like, oh, come on. Why is Andrew Monasterio in the leadoff spot? What is our infatuation with just throwing guys in key spots in the lineup that are barely hitting their weight? We have this infatuation with the Milwaukee Brewers to do that sort of thing. So Andrew Monasterio was in the leadoff spot. And of course, you're going to find Daz Cameron batting fifth. So after the show, after seeing that, I was all ready to come here on the podcast on Wednesday thinking, man, if they lose, I'm going to blame it on that lineup again. The old Sunday lineup the Brewers threw out there, even though they're facing a lefty. But Monasterio comes up, scores, helps the Brewers plate the first run with an RBI single. Cameron later jacks a 2-run home run, and all is good. So even though I wasn't a big fan of the lineup, two guys who I think shouldn't be batting first and fifth respectively, with Monasterio and Cameron, helped deliver a Brewers win. And yeah, coming back after Tuesday and losing that game, I thought, okay, are the Brewers going to be in the doldrums now? Is that going to carry over until today's game, Wednesday's game? It didn't. That was 1-0 through 4 innings, and the Brewers just kind of cut loose and pulled away. Ike Collins goes Yahtzee in the 9th inning, and the Brewers pull away with a 9-1 win. But yeah, happily was wrong when I got disgusted with the lineup when I first came out. And I know you guys do too. I'm not the only one. But yeah, the Brewers did get the win, 13 hits. But and I'm focusing on the offense because the pitching is always, to me, terrific with the Milwaukee. If you've been following this podcast, you know I'm very high on the Milwaukee Brewers pitching. But 13 hits, 3 home runs, coming off a downer of a game Tuesday and Wednesday. They only won 3-2. They scored 3 runs. They scored all the runs in the first 3 innings and then went silent over the final 6. And kind of did the same thing on Tuesday in a loss. But I'm bearing the lead on the pitching. The duo of Hall, not Hall and Oates, but Hall and Priester has been pretty good, right? Hall and Priester. Combined, these two have worked 17 innings and given up just 3 runs. It's pretty good. I like that combination. And D.L. Hall, since coming off the injured list, 3 innings pitched so far, a 1.08 earned run average. I like D.L. Hall, man. He's been pretty good. In fact, I think I got that innings wrong. He's pitched more than that. But D.L. Hall has been spectacular. 3 shutout innings, I know, on Wednesday. But D.L. Hall, in both times he's been out there, and all times he's been out there, been pretty good for these guys. All right, they got him the Corbin Burns deal. Been mostly injured, but now we're starting to see some production out of the left-handed kid, and I like that. And they got him in a nice role. I like the Hall-Priester combination. I like that. Going with an opener with Hall and then Priester. I'll take that. Hall and long relief, perfect. Starter, opener, going 3 innings. I love that idea. and the two combined to allow just 3 hits on the Reds, and they get the job done. As somebody put on Twitter, only 11 more now wins to the George Webb Burgers. So the guys on Locked On MLB, the podcast, were making fun of it, and they got a point in a sense. My buddy JD Hafford from the Cardinals was saying, boy, the Brewers win 12 in a row and they're giving out hamburgers. Those better be pretty good hamburgers. Well, the George Webb hamburgers are pretty good. But if you think about it, man, in the day where people are giving out fries and all that for scoring 100 points in an NBA basketball game or holding a team to under 100 points, it's kind of 1970s of us here in Wisconsin to think you got to win 12 games in a row to get a free burger, right? When JD said that, I was like, well, no, yeah, you kind of make a point there. But it's a Wisconsin thing, right? It's not so much the free hamburger that's worth like 59 cents, but it's the gimmick of it. You know, it's the outstanding breakfast place that's got a gimmick going on that's been going on for 40 some odd years. I think that's what the allure of it. Not so much the free hamburgers. Maybe it is, but it's not 1979 anymore, getting a free hamburger. But very cool. But JD, when he said that, God, you got to win 12 games to get a free hamburger? Those must be pretty good hamburgers. They're good hamburgers, but yeah, we really got to work to get those hamburgers 12 in a row. It's been done twice in franchise history. No update on Woodruff. He was supposed to have some tests done on Wednesday afternoon. No reports yet. And of course, he took one off the right elbow on Tuesday night in his rehab start. He was flying back from Nashville to Milwaukee, and then Wednesday afternoon was supposed to have a test done. The Brewers had a game Wednesday morning/afternoon, so no update on Woody's elbow, but the initial returns when he had the test done on Tuesday in Nashville, the tests were negative. They were bringing him back to Milwaukee to let the Milwaukee doctors look at him. So the Brewers right now stay, or they move up to 5 games behind the Cubs, because the Cubs got beat. They got beat by Washington 2-0. So the Cubs at 38-23 maintain their lofty lead in first place in the NL Central, 4.5 over St. Louis, 5 over Milwaukee, 9 over Cincinnati. And with that win, Milwaukee now just a half a game out of the wild card, just a half a game, as close as they've been in a while. They will play one of the teams they're chasing for the wild card, the San Diego Padres, on Friday in a first of 3. Big homestand coming up, 10-gamer. We started off with San Diego, who comes in here. They have a game to play on Thursday yet. One more game, an afternoon game against San Francisco. And then they're going to make the cross-country trip, check in their hotel, and play the Brewers on Friday. But so far, they're 35-25 as of early Thursday morning with that game pending against San Francisco. I do have the rotation for the Brewers. Do not have San Diego's. It was all TBA for the Padres. But the Brewers, I have our Patrick, Quintana, and Savale. Patrick, Quintana, and Savale. Friday, Patrick. Saturday, Quintana, and Sunday, Savale. Sounds like 2 of 3, right? And the Reds, 5 games over the 500 mark. Machado had a nice game on Tuesday. I saw, had 4 hits. I got to close my window here. I kept the window open, nice night, and a train goes by. Who would have guessed? That's how things usually work around here. Patrick, Quintana, and Savale. And the Brewers will battle the Padres on the first of 3 on Friday night. Maybe we'll see you at a game this weekend. Coming up next, my little sit down with Jeff Carr from Locked On Reds. I always try to hook up with the guys from the NL Central, whether it's JD or the guys from the Cubs or the Pirates or the Reds. Talk a little bit about the series, because the Brewers are in a race with the Reds. Reds are 9 games out, but they're far from it. So we'll talk about both of our teams and all that when we continue on here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day.
Lather, rinse, repeat. The Milwaukee Brewers have beaten the Cincinnati Reds in quite frankly, we're not really sure when it's going to change.
You are Locked On MLB Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into this Locked On MLB crossover between the Locked On Reds podcast and the Locked On Brewers podcast. My name is Jeff Carr. I'm one half of the Locked On Reds podcast. And that man right there next to me, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening, Chuck Freimund from Locked On Brewers is joining me here today. Chuck's going to get the gloat because, that's now 12 series in a row that the Milwaukee Brewers have beaten the Cincinnati Reds. It's been a while since the Reds have beaten the Brewers in a series. We're going to definitely break that down. We're also going to take a look at a couple of interesting trends that I'm wondering if they're fads or if they're just the reality for either one of these teams. And then later on in today's show, we will be talking about what is coming next for both of our ball clubs here on this Locked On MLB crossover. We thank you for always making us part of your everyday routine. Chuck, something that's not part of the everyday routine for the Cincinnati Reds is beating the Milwaukee Brewers, or quite frankly, just getting Christian Yelich out on a regular basis. Because once again, and I promise, I said nothing at the beginning of the season bad about Mr. Yelich, and I mean, he's still something happened along the way. I don't know if he had bad Skyline chili or what, but he really loves to take it to the Reds.
It's amazing. It's amazing. But he's been on a roll ever since a week ago Tuesday. He has been on an amazing roll. He had the walk-off grand slam against Boston on that night and had been on the road. This was during their 8-game winning streak. But yeah, it's funny. I don't think about at all when we go into a series with you guys, we've dominated the Reds. The Brewers have dominated the Reds. Oh, Christian Yelich. And then the series comes, and then you're like, oh, that's right. It seems like we just keep winning games. It's like the only team we can have real big dominance against, but I'm glad we do. I'm glad it's not the other way around, but it's weird how it is gone one way.
It's strange because it seems like it's the same young core, and quite frankly, looking this up the other day, the last time that the Reds won a series against Milwaukee was actually 2022 in Milwaukee. So it wasn't even in Cincinnati. It's crazy to think that's before McLean, that's before Ellie De La Cruz, that's before this young core was really going on. That team is vastly different from the team that they have on the field now. And the team that they have on the field now just has not known any success against the Brewers. There's something about it that it feels like one thing or two things goes wrong. And of course, the series finale on Wednesday seemed like plenty of things went wrong later in the game for the Brewers to get the 9-1 victory. But at the same time, like, I'm looking at the 3-2 win in game one, where it was Yelich hitting the home run in the third inning and then just lights out pitching by a couple of dudes that you weren't expecting. Like Freddie Peralta pitched amazing in game two. That was not the thing. What was the thing in game one was how the Brewers were able to just shut down the Reds with not their top guys in the rotation.
And the Brewers have been doing it all year long, Jeff, and which is surprising because, you look at other teams and they have injuries, and the Brewers have one injury after another. And they're playing with guys out there, even in left field, who are not their preferred left fielders or third base. And you look around, they've had a lot of injuries, but still, then I look at you guys, I look at the Reds and I say, how are the Reds struggling? Because every year I think you guys are going to be in the mix, and it's, not that you're not, you still, which are, 9-10 games out.
Falling out of it, man. I'm not going to lie.
No, I know. I know. And if the Brewers had not gone on this 8-game winning streak, we'd be right there with you. And I said that on my podcast the other day, but I don't get it. I don't understand. Like I honestly thought with Terry Francona and another year of Ellie and so on, I not that I was going to pick you guys to win the division. I picked the Brewers, but I thought you guys would, and it's still a long way to go, but we're going to at least have a winning record at this point.
Right. And to be honest, it's been a lot of weird slumps, and Ellie has started to really get going here recently. And actually, he's been going through a lot in his personal life, lost his older sister over this past weekend He was finishing up this Brewers series on Wednesday, and then he was going to go on bereavement and go be with his family for, I believe, at least the next couple of days, and probably going to miss the beginning, if not all of the Diamondback series this weekend. But he's been going through a lot, but playing well in spite of it. But like the biggest thing has been Matt McClain, where we said coming into this season, he's back, he's healthy, this team's going to be different because he is in the lineup. And he has just hit this wall that he can't get past. I mean, he had a couple of RBIs in this series, an RBI single and RBI ground out. And that's like the most impact he has had in like a month. He has had a huge sample size of struggle this year. And I've gotten to the point where like I've looked at every number and I've looked at everything that I can possibly find, and I can't explain it.
Well, I saw your short the other day, and you were hoping, I'm paraphrasing that, that the way you guys won, maybe that was going to kickstart your season a little bit and things were going to get going a little bit. And I was a little worried. And then I saw that and I thought, oh yeah, I'm a little worried that coming back Wednesday that the Brewers are going to have a little bit of a hangover and that would be it. And you were talking about Frito. Oh, maybe he's going to lead this team and all that. And I thought, oh, you're a little scaring me. I was like, oh God, I'm worried about this game now. And the Brewers came back when it was 1-0. Jeff, through 4 innings, I thought, okay, here's another one of these games where the Brewers are just going to be sitting on one run the whole game, kind of like how they sat in that 3-2 lead on Monday. And I did not expect that offensive explosion. It just stunned me.
Yeah, Daz Cameron looking like his dad with that big old home run there. That was crazy.
Unreal. And then Ike Collins, muscling up at the ninth inning just for insurance.
Wade Miley returning, man, he didn't look all that great there out of the bullpen. I think it's tough because the Reds had just put Hunter Green on the injured list, so they're bringing Wade Miley in for insurance. He was on the roster for the entire season up until this past weekend when he chose to elect free agency. Reports were there were actually multiple teams that were talking to him about bringing him in, but then whenever Hunter Green had to hit the IL again with the groin, they brought him back. And then they said, okay, he's either going to be out of the bullpen today or they're going to put him in the rotation and he starts against Cleveland next week. And so I'm not sure what the plan is moving forward now because he just got blown up there late in that game. And while it was a typical scenario of DL Hall, AKA anyone that throws an object with their left hand, shutting down this Reds lineup, like, on the other side of it, it felt like the Reds had a shot there late in the game, and then it just completely got obliterated.
Yeah, the Churio hits the home run and put it 3-1, and I'm thinking, okay, are they going to set in this 3-1 lead? You guys had bases loaded with 1 out early in that game too, and Hall was able to wiggle out of that, and then he turns it over to Priester, and Priester pitches great. So those two combined for 3 hits. I was just a little bit surprised that the Brewers were able to win that one going away. So I honestly, though, think that both of our teams, unfortunately, are looking toward the wild card. I really do. I just think that I don't see it's going to be tough catching the Cubs either way, whether you are 9 games over or are 9 games out or 5.5, 6 out. It's the Cubs. I'm afraid this is going to be their year to win the division.
I think it's crazy that they are where they are. You're almost looking, if you're a Cubs fan, you're almost looking at like what seed in the playoffs the Cubs are going to get. Like, unless they just go through this monumental collapse, but I don't see what that lineup is so good.
It is. I mean, like the other night, they're at Washington. It was a 3-2 game. And before you look up at the scoreboard, it's 8-3. I was like, okay, that one's over. Cubs, they're not coming down to our level. And when I say that, Brewers 5 games. Yeah, are the Brewers and Reds capable of getting 15, 16 over the 500 mark? Because I don't think the Cubs are coming down.
I definitely don't think the Reds are.
Yeah.
And I got definitely more to say about that. Me and Steve are going to discuss that on our show tomorrow for sure. But yeah,
who came back last year? Who knows?
It's gonna be a long haul. I know that, and there's a couple of stats that point to that, and I'm curious. This is your reaction because I have real numbers that are really weird. We'll get to those coming up next. We're getting into the heat of summer, which means there's no better time to jump in on the action on FanDuel than right now. New users actually can get $200 in bonus bets with your first winning $5 wager. And you can throw that on different things like run lines, money lines, over-unders on total scores. And of course, who's going to hit a dinger tonight? You also got Dinger Tuesdays that give you that bonus on the home run props. Got to check those out. I'm also looking at some division futures because FanDuel has some updated lines on the division, and man, they don't think the Cubs are going to lose the NL Central. They got odds on the Cubs to win the NL Central at minus 410. Yeah, so you're saying there's a chance. Well, Cardinals are the second at 6-1. Milwaukee third best at 9-1. The Reds are at 41-1, and the Pirates, well, they gave them a number for some reason, 500-1. Yeah, those are your odds over on FanDuel. It doesn't look like the Cubs are losing the NL Central. Check them out today. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. We appreciate you for checking out this Locked On MLB crossover between the Locked On Reds and Locked On Brewers podcast and making us a part of your everyday routine. If you are not an everydayer of Locked On Reds or Locked On Brewers, make sure you hit that subscribe button right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. We're seriously on all of them out there. All right, check that. This series was interesting because the rubber match brought together a number of negative statistics for the Reds. And I want to just throw some of these numbers at you that are, they're insane. And quite frankly, they're real. They are not made up. And I don't even know that you could write this in a book somewhere. The Reds now, after having lost the rubber match, are 0-39 whenever they lose the first game of a series. For the last 39 series, they've lost the last 39 series when they lose game one.
Boy, those are some good betting numbers there to bet against.
Crazy numbers.
Wow.
And I mentioned the 12 straight series losses to the Brewers, now 13 straight. And when they're trailing after 6 this year in 2025, when they're trailing just after 6 innings, if you tune into the 7th inning and the Reds are down, they are 0-26.
So if you tune into the ball game late, and
you can turn it off and you don't miss anything.
If you're going to turn Cowboy on, you might still turn Cowboy off because you want to do something else.
Right.
It's the same result after the game.
And to explain numbers like that, Chuck, like I almost want to be like, they're due, right? Like that's all I got. That's all I got for numbers like that. How do you come back from that?
That's weird. I don't know. That's a trend though. That first trend you're talking about, dropping the opener of a series, that's a weird trend.
If they lose game one, they are over. They are 0 for the last 39. They're almost 40 straight. If they lose on Friday to the Diamondbacks, then they have a chance of going 40 straight series where if they lose game one, they lose the series. That is insane.
Wow. Go to FanDuel and just bet against them if they lose.
What we're saying, if you got no problems, bet against the Reds. If they lose game one of a series, bet on them to lose one of the next two because it's going to happen.
Well, those are. I don't know how to help you out those numbers there. That's astounding, and that's some good math. Where did you get those numbers from?
It's definitely. They've been kept up with for a while now in Reds country because they're insane as far as like statistics go. And I remember a couple of years ago, like 2023, whenever this core came up, they were the cardiac kids, right? They were coming back. They made all these different comeback wins, and their pitching wasn't good, but the hitting was good enough to bail out the pitching. And now it's anything but. Now the pitching does its job almost every day. Wednesday didn't do its job, but pretty much every day the Reds pitching staff does its job, and the hitting doesn't because they are just horrible at getting those timely hits. And they've been built not like a team that has a homer-friendly park, but they've been built like a team that has to string hit after hit after hit after hit, and so they've got to play perfect baseball to get a win. It's crazy.
The Brewers' mode of winning is they feel like traffic on the base paths. And that's kind of what you're saying. See, that's what they like to do. They don't want. They're not sitting back and waiting for the 3-run home run,
right?
kind of like their philosophy used to be. Their idea is get guys on and put pressure on the defense and get runners on and get them on and get walks and do that sort of thing. That's what the Brewers mode is. So that's not what the Reds are trying to do or accomplish here?
I think that's what they want to do. That's not what they're good at.
Okay.
Because they're league average when it comes on base percentage. They're league average when it comes to batting average. So they've got to be good at something, but their league average is slugging as well. And their quality of contract just isn't, it just doesn't seem like they're making an adjustment to fit what it is they want to do. And it's crazy because I saw that contrast very quickly with the games between Hunter Green and Andrew Abbott, because the way that the Brewers lineup attacked Hunter Green was absolutely different from the way that they attacked Andrew Abbott. And I thought that was a really interesting thing to witness as far as how the Brewers prepare. It feels like the Brewers are like super prepared for the Reds every time they play them.
That's the one thing about the Brewers is, there's a few things to like, but I think that they don't beat themselves for the most part. They don't commit a lot of errors. They don't make mistakes. They don't do stupid things on the base paths, but they have to win that way because their margin of error is so small. They're not an overly talented team. You look at the lineup, it's not overly talented, and you're not going to get any all-stars on that team. Yeah, Christian Yelich could go on a nice run. He's going on right now, and Churio's going to be great, but there's nobody on that team who wows you offensively. And maybe that's something the Reds, I don't watch them day to day, but how is their, do they play fundamentally sound baseball like the Brewers do? They don't make a lot of errors. They, beating yourselves, making mistakes in the base paths, getting picked off. The Brewers kind of stay away from that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the Reds have problems with that. Honestly, that was the entire reason that TJ Friedl even had that opportunity to rob Jake Bauers of that home run on Tuesdays, because Ellie De La Cruz just booted that throw on a routine ground ball that Caleb Durbin hit. And that was such a bad throw. The pitch right before that, Emilio Pagan had gotten into the strike zone, but he didn't get the strike call. Like you mentioned, like the margin for error. The Reds also have no margin for error, but they do not play fundamentally sound baseball. They play a lot of very inconsistent ups and downs, peaks and valleys type game. And I think for me, at least to this point, I have seen the difference between talent and production. Because like you mentioned, like if you put the two teams on paper and you'll load up the scouting reports and stuff, like Churio's going to be up there. You're going to have, you're still going to have Christian Yelich up there. I know that he kind of had a struggle to start the season, but we're seeing him kind of come back into his own. William Contreras is going to be up there, but it feels like the Reds have a lot of scouting reports that are going to compete with those guys as well. But the team that's getting the most production out of their players is the Brewers. The Reds have not bridged that gap between a talented player and one that produces.
I feel like anytime the Brewers hit one to shortstop, and De La Cruz made that error on Tuesday, I feel like I don't feel like the play is over when it's hitting when De La Cruz. And I love him. I think the guy has got superstar written all over him. But I think, can you imagine that guy tracking down balls in center field? Oh my God, he'd be awesome out there.
Steve would hate saying that. He hates that.
He doesn't want to go. He doesn't want De La Cruz in center.
He does. He thinks more like third base or something like that. But I'm like, I do see his athleticism playing super well in the outfield. I think that would work.
Yeah, I just like the throw he made the other night, Jeff. I just thought it's like I've seen that out of him already, and I've seen him have errors and all that. Just think he's out of. They're trying to force feed him. Again, I'm an outsider looking at this. I just feel like they're force feeding him shortstop. Like, you're going to play shortstop. You're going to get this right, or else you're playing shortstop for us.
And quite frankly, it's something that every Reds fan thinks about pretty much any game that Ellie goes off on. Every Reds fan's just like, all right, a couple more years of this and he'll be a Dodger.
Sure.
Things like that. But I think the moment that he, but the moment that he goes to another team, I think they're going to move him. I don't know why the Reds aren't considering that at least. And I think that there's something about that. And to be honest with you, it's something that I'm building on. It's a thought that keeps building in my mind the more that I watch this team, that I think the mode or the idea of 2025 for the Reds and the idea of 2025 for the Brewers is becoming much clearer. and it's very different. And I want to talk about that next. If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcast app. Literally, Locked On Brewers, Locked On Reds. We are on all of the podcasting apps out there. Check us out today. Also, make sure you check out Locked On MLB Game Night. They watch every game, every night, so that you don't have to. You can just watch them, and then they'll tell you about all the big games and what you missed. And it's a great show every single day, even Saturday and Sunday, on the Locked On MLB YouTube feed and Locked On MLB audio feeds as well. So, okay, Chuck, I mentioned, I think these two teams are headed in different directions. I think that the Brewers are gunning for a wild card spot. I think they've got a shot, depending on how the Cubs continue to maybe compete with the Cubs at the top of the division. I just think that they do the most with the least in the division. Like, I don't think there's a lot to be worried about. It seems like whoever they bring in, pitching, hitting, the Brewers just seem to get the best out of those guys. And I think that that is a huge testament and something that, quite frankly, I'm jealous of, because I don't think the Reds have gotten there yet with their talent. And I think the reason for that, as much as the Reds would never have said this on opening day, is because this is Terry Francona's first year. He came into the Reds and he swore up and down anybody that asked him, no, I did not make demands on them. I did not say, you've got to spend X amount of money on the roster. You got to go get this guy. You got to go get this guy. He said, I didn't say that. I'm excited to manage this team. But I think that's because he was going to manage this team this year and figure out what it is he needs and who it is he can trust, who it is he can work with, and who it is he needs to replace. Because I think that any good manager understands that you don't understand your personnel from day one. You've got to see it in action. And the more that he's seeing guys in action, the more that he's testing guys in certain situations, he is understanding who he can trust and who he can't. And I think because of that, the rest of this season is going to be a little bit more about evaluation for the Reds, less so about trying to make the playoffs.
See, I feel like my theory on a manager is this: there's very few guys out there, in past or present, who have been difference makers as managers. And I feel like Francona, he's had some pretty good teams in other spots. Yeah. He's had some pretty good talent in some of those other spots. One guy who I think is old school, Sparky Anderson. He's in Tony La Russa, but I thought those are two guys who I thheought Sparky, where it was Detroit or Cincinnati, no matter what team he had, they were going to overachieve and be real good. Sparky's teams. And of course he had the big red machine. But I don't know. I just think the manager thing, I mean, Pat Murphy got his first managerial job at 65 years old and won manager of the year last year. But they had a lot of things come together for them. They had a lot of things come. So I think a little luck is involved as well. But you need guys, you need players, you need guys who are going to produce. You got the greatest, you got Sparky Anderson, but your guys still got to produce.
That's the hard part. And that's something that a lot of Reds fans will misquote a little bit. And quite frankly, I don't remember the word for word quote, but like people would always ask Sparky about, being a really awesome manager and how his career went. And he's just like, pointing at the guys on the field. And he's just like, it's easy when I got those guys. Like that at the end of the day, it's about the guys on the field. And I think that the Reds are learning this, not as if they didn't already know it, but it seems as though their actions show they didn't necessarily know it, because when they moved on from David Bell, they said all these different things about underperforming and missing out on one-run games and all this other stuff. That stuff still persists. And I don't think they're going to blame Terry Francona for it because, well, he just started. So I think they've got to look now at the roster. They maybe even need to look at the front office. Is the front office set up the correct way?
Well, that's the thing. That's what the front office there plays a big part in this.
Yes. And I think that is probably the biggest difference between the Brewers and the Reds, is that I feel like the Brewers have really put together an amazing front office.
And they have. And like, there's some things they disagree with the Brewers. Like tonight, Andrew Monasterio is in a leadoff spot. Guy's hitting like 167. Why are we batting that guy in the leadoff spot? But he comes up with an RBI base hit. It's like Daz Cameron batting in the fifth hole. All right. Why are we batting this guy fifth? We have the Brewers put together some unusual, just bizarre lineups sometimes. And then, but they won 9-1. So I can't. So I was already after Wednesday's game, Jeff. I was like, man, this lineup. Oh, if they lose, I'm just gonna just destroy the Brewers. Put out this lineup, and then they come up and score 9 runs. So I'm like, well, I guess I can't do that. That's not gonna be mine.
I think the moral of the story is anytime we think something's going to go right, just prepare for it to go wrong. And then vice versa. We think it's going to go wrong, it's going to go right.
Oh, sure.
Because you mentioned I had said that about TJ Friedel, and there were so many people that were just like, bet we lose tomorrow. I was like, yeah, they were right.
Oh, yeah.
But I find this intriguing, and I kind of want to win in today's podcast discussing this real quick, Chuck. The idea of the schedule. I think that the Reds and the Brewers have been okay so far as how they faced each other. They faced once in April. They faced now once here in June, and they've got a couple of more series coming up. But I feel like that's been pretty balanced. But there's definitely some series, division-wise, is where I'm really focused on this, that have suffered because of the whole idea of balanced schedules. And, you've got, we got to play everybody. And that's all well and good, but I think that has come at the expense of division rivalries.
I will say this, like, I felt like some years, like we would be playing the Pirates every other day. And it's like, when you're playing the Pirates, it's like, really, we're going to
Let's get excited.
Yeah, it's hard to.
Yeah.
But I feel like for the fans, since like the NL Central, we're all within travel distance. I mean, the Cincinnati is, Chicago is, St. Louis and Milwaukee. So I think these series should be played when we play these divisional matchups, should be played in the summertime. Like you guys were here in April. Well, the fans can't travel up here in April. Well, they can, but in the summertime, you have more vacation and all that. Let's make these divisional games. Let's play most of these games in June, July, and August. This one was in June. So fans could travel, and there's more availability to travel, vacation time for people who work.
I do want to get up to Milwaukee. I got to get me some spotted cow. I know that had that a couple of different times, and I know I can't get it outside of the state, so I got to get up there.
You know what's funny about that, Jeff? I've never had a spotted cow in my life.
What? Oh my gosh! I had a buddy that.
Of course, I have alcohol, but it's brewed in New Glarus. But I was like, everybody outside of Wisconsin says, the spotted cows. I've never had one. Maybe the only beer I've ever had. I don't know. What's such a fascination for spotted cows outside of Wisconsin.
It's tasty. I'll say that. It's a delicious beverage. I know that much. But no, I wouldn't mind that. I almost wonder. It's kind of difficult to do with a 162 game season, but I almost wonder if they could create some sort of appointment viewing kind of like that, where it's just like, this is division month or division week or something like that, where they did that whole rivalry weekend a couple of weekends ago. And, we made fun of some of the rivalries, like some of the rivalries don't make a lot of sense. But they did a lot of those interleague rivalries and stuff like that weekend. I wonder if they could kind of do that, because that's really worked for like college football and stuff like that.
Yeah, they did this rivalry weekend, a few weeks ago, like in May, and it was like, well, I mean, you didn't know about it. Oh, it is rivalry weekend? Okay. But yeah, something like if they could or whatever. But I think you're right. I'm with you on that. I like the divisional emphasis. But like I said, the Pirates thing was a little off, but Cincinnati, the Cubs, St. Louis, all drivable distances. I know when you guys come up here, in April, you don't notice as many fans as when you all come up here in July. You have a lot more fans. Right. You see them everywhere. You see them at the casino, and they're great fans. So we love the Red fans. Reds fans are great. They don't cause any problem. Not like those nasty Cub fans who we all hate.
I was going to say the Cubs fans are the problem. Maybe we just do it when they can't travel. I don't know.
Oh yeah, let's play the Cubs in April, so that way like during the
play
week,
them in March.
Play them in March when there's still snow on the ground here. But the summer months, the teams like Cincinnati, I'm good with the fans coming here. They're great fans. Exactly. See the Pete Rose jerseys, the Tony Perez jerseys, Dave Concepcion's. I love them.
Hey, if you're at the ballpark a couple of weeks ago on a Wednesday night, you got a Pete Rose jersey. I got my Pete Rose jersey.
There we go.
Washed. Got some nacho cheese on it. Anyway,
my 2 cents. Pete Rose, long overdue. I'm glad to see he's back.
Yeah, it's definitely a long overdue. Hoping hoping he gets in. I know they're not going to do the whole classical era, whatever the era committee is that they call it. Modern era committee, something era committee. It's not going to be for a couple of years, but whenever they do that, I'm hoping that he makes it in and we can finally get him into Cooper State.
Amazing. I was around. I was a little kid seeing those 70s Big Red Machine, and man, that guy was how he's not in the Hall of Fame is a travesty.
That's a perfect way to end today's episode. Thank you so much for checking out this Locked On Reds, Locked On Brewers crossover. We appreciate everybody who makes us part of your everyday routine. If you don't, and you want to become an everydayer, hit that subscribe button. We appreciate it if you do, because both Locked On Reds and Locked On Brewers are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every single day.